Hello everyone, buddy, and welcome to our quick and dirty introduction to copyright in music, brought to you by Tjoon. In this episode, we cover how the music business works, what the deal is with publishers and labels. In episode 1, we learnt that the music industry is actually the music industries, with two distinct sides, the publishing industry and the recording industry. These two separate industries interact with one another and often rely on each other for their own existence and survival. Songwriters and publishing companies need the recording artists and record labels to promote and market the music in order to make money. In the same way, the record labels and the artists need songs from the songwriters to record and sell the music. And then publishing companies need content to publish. Remember that it is possible for a company or a person to be in both the recording and publishing industries. Many artists write their own songs and many record labels have publishing divisions. In fact, it's possible for one person to be the songwriter, publisher, performer, or recording artist and record label, all by themselves. We also learned that each industry should be considered separate because they tend to trade in completely different aspects of copyright. Publishing and neighboring rights. In law, there is only one copyright, but in practice, the industry somewhat splits them to exploit them in particular ways. And there are various credits a creative can be credited with in the making of a musical or recorded work. Now we're going into detail about what each side of the industry does, how they do it, and how creatives are able to be a part of it, whether or not they work with publishing companies or record labels. This video is about how the industries work in practice. In an ideal world, it makes the most sense to begin with the publishing industry because they deal with the intellectual property involved in a musical work, which is essential to make a recorded work. When a song is used, even if the publishing rights holder did not make the recording, they are entitled to a portion of the money that gets generated from the use of the intellectual property. For example, when Goldfish recorded their cover of Nirvana's Heart-Shaped Box, they needed to secure the permission and rights to do that. With those rights, however, they then created a new additional copyright on their version. Usually, a deal will be struck between the original artist and the cover artist to share revenue, but that is dependent on the agreement between them. That may sound confusing, but it's fairly straightforward. You see, each and every recorded work is based on a composition. For a composition to be recorded, permission in the form of a license needs to be obtained from the owner, in this case, Nirvana, or the label that owns their music. A license is when the rights holder gives another person or party permission to use their copyright, either to perform on stage, adapt, or make a recording of it. It is like renting or leasing the copyright, just like an asset. So let's have a look at the publishing industry. As we know, publishing refers to making something public or generally known. You will know the word from the literary industry. Books have publishers just like music. In fact, music publishing was based on book publishing when it was first created. In music's case, it used to involve the printing of sheet music and making it available to orchestras to perform and to the public to buy and recreate at home on the family piano. The main difference between the literary industry and the music industries is that music includes recordings, which is a completely different medium to a written song, but essentially the same ideas. To help drive the point home one more time, the music publishing industry works with intellectual property in the music, whether it is in a recorded medium, a printable medium, written down, or documented in some way. A publishing company or publisher's basic role is to ensure that copyright holders are exposed to opportunities to be paid for the use of their copyright, whether they're performed, recorded, or licensed. In order to license the use or sale of copyright, a publishing company must get them from somewhere. This can be done by buying or licensing them from another publishing company, but more often than not, it involves acquiring the rights from songwriters. As the rights holder of a publishing right, the songwriter owns the commodity that the publisher wants to make use of to make money. This is commonly referred to as exploiting the music or commercializing it. This interaction is where publishing deals come in. Publishing deals are an agreement between the publishing rights holders, like songwriters, and publishing companies. The publisher then licenses compositions to users such as record labels, recording artists, TV and film producers, and the like, and then monitors where compositions are used. In the case of most sync deals, a publisher will also negotiate on behalf of the songwriters to secure the best deals possible. They also perform essential admin to ensure all licensing happens properly and that all of the royalties get to the right people. Some of that admin includes registering the publishing copyrights with relevant collective management organizations, or CMOs, ensuring that all of the relevant metadata is correct and up to date, bookkeeping services, and collecting royalties from users or licensees and distributing them to their clients. Now let's go deeper into publishing deals. Publishing deals can take on many shapes and forms, and each one is usually unique in some way or another. In each case, the basic transaction is the same. The publisher will perform a range of administration and business tasks mentioned before on behalf of the songwriter. In return, the publisher is entitled to a share of the royalties and revenue that's generated usually. While each deal will vary on the exact conditions, such as the percentage split, the tasks to be undertaken, inclusion of an advance, or the term or amount of time that the deal is valid for, they are all designed to do the same thing, and that is generate and administrate revenue from the copyright. Like any contract, publishing deals should be considered very carefully and thoroughly, and should be negotiated so that the songwriter gets the best deal possible. Under most publishing deals, the songwriter and the publishing company share claims to the copyright. This is done through licensing, revenue, exclusivity, and/or royalty agreements. Less often, they may opt for co-ownership, though this comes with its own issues. You can consider it like this. Rights equal royalties. Whomever owns the copyright should get the royalty unless there's an agreement to the contrary. And there are a lot of those. As we learnt in Chapter 1, songwriters refer to the individual creative people who wrote the song. Each individual is credited with the roles that they performed in the writing of the song, such as the composer, who wrote the music, and the author, who wrote the lyrics. There can be multiple individuals performing each role, and there is no need for every role to be filled. For example, a song could have 3 composers and 2 authors, or just 1 composer and nothing else. When a song is written, the songwriters should decide who owns each part. This is recorded on a split sheet, where each person is credited with their roles and their percentage ownership of the copyright. Should being the operative word, as it's often neglected, leaving the writers to duke it out in some form of tribunal when a dispute eventually arises. You may have heard people referring to credits on a song or an album. These splits and roles are what they're talking about. Now let's look at the recording industry. If we use the same analogy of the literary industry from earlier on, we know that recorded works are in fact just another medium that can hold the same ideas and intellectual property that is in a musical work. Just like an audiobook contains the same story as the printed version, but it's definitely not a book. We know that the record industry relies on publishing right holders, like songwriters, to create musical works that can be recorded. In fact, their business model is fairly similar to that of the publishing industry, except they exist to sell or license the use of recorded works, not musical works. A record label's main job is to ensure that artists and neighboring rights holders are correctly compensated for the use and sale of their works. This involves signing recording deals with neighboring rights holders, like recording artists, who assign the rights to the record label with permission to exploit them. In most cases, the record label will pay a recording budget for the recording sessions to claim ownership of them. The label then proceeds to license the use of the recordings and sell them in various formats such as digital downloads, CDs, and vinyls to music fans. This involves a lot of promotion, which the label normally pays for, as well as packaging the recordings into each format and distributing them to the point of sale where fans can access them. It could be done by the publisher too, depending on the agreements. Lastly, they perform the same admin tasks as publishing companies to ensure that all licensing happens properly and that all of the royalties get to the right people. Who are these creative people, the artists? Recording artists are creative rights holders of the recording industry, and they are musical artists that play musical instruments and sing on recordings and in live performances. Many of them are also songwriters, meaning they exist in the publishing industry too. Just like songwriters, they are credited with roles that they perform in the creation of the recording. Notably, these roles are featured artist, non-featured artist, or other featured artist. The feature artist is the main artist whose name the work will be released under. Non-featured artists are like session musicians or studio producers. And other featured artists are guest recording artists credited within the song title. For example, song title featuring other featured artist. Just like publishing credits, each role can be filled with multiple individuals. For example, if a band records a song together, they all qualify for a featured artist credit. Recording deals follow the same principles as publishing deals, where each party performs certain roles in the pursuit of creating, licensing, and selling recorded music. There are many types of record deals. Some stipulate that the record label owns everything that the artist produces, including their image and name, which entitles them to a large percentage of all of the revenue that the artist makes. Others are much simpler, where the label only distributes the music, owns only a small share in the recordings, and is only entitled to a smaller share of the revenue that they generate. It's interesting that while these industries are clearly distinct from one another, they are also fairly similar in their business models. Both publishers and labels act a bit like a bank in providing the budget to create and record the works and promote the recordings. In many cases, this is supported by a financial loan known as an advance. As a result, the company typically requires something in return, and that can be anything from a stake in the music to a right to the royalties. The artist or songwriter is technically in debt to the label or publisher, respectively. When the musical work or recording makes money, the publisher or label often collect all of it, which pays back the loan. Once the debt has been repaid, they then start to pay the songwriter or artist share over to them. Advances or loans can be seen as crucial to many artists or songwriters. It affords them the time to give up their day job and work on their music, and provides the budget to record and make promotional content. They should, however, always be treated as what they are: credit which creates debt. Aside from financial support, many artists find the publishers or labels' additional services to be very helpful. They have big networks that make it easy to connect with skilled people, and they have dedicated professionals to assist the artists with their careers. Lastly, a disclaimer. Technology and the internet have had a massive impact on the music industry. It hasn't been rocked this hard since recording was invented. It is by far the most exciting time too. There has never, in the history of time, been so much music being made, and most of it is available instantly online. Songwriters and artists are able to bypass the publishers and labels altogether, and as a result, the industries are changing rapidly. The future looks bright. In episode 3, we'll look at what aspects exist in publishing and neighboring rights. We'll also look at royalties and find out who gets them. Thanks for watching. We'll tune you later.